Doing all right. How are you?
All right, good. We're blessed in the cold.
Well, it's kind of hard to follow that speech. I think we should have a big round of applause for Tony. You know, what will happen if people simply watch what goes on television and sit back and say, "Wow, that's terrible," but they don't do anything about it? Tony is the kind of person who will make a sacrifice to do something about it. So he deserves a whole lot of credit for what's going on today, and for being here and expressing those thoughts and being such a strong supporter of life. I don't think I can say nearly half the good things that he said, but for what it's worth, here's my words. I thought I'd say something this morning about an old story that many of you have heard. It's called the sexual revolution. You know, there was a time at the beginning of creation where God decided that he would bring or create humans so that life would be the fruit of love. And he guided us with commandments and the teachings of the gospel in so many ways to teach us how to use our freedom so that we would find happiness and so that we would grow and become everything that God ever wanted us to be. He taught us in his laws and his ways so that a man and a woman could commit themselves to each other in love for a lifetime and bring forth the fruit of their love in new life. And that's a beautiful plan. It's from God. God wants us to be happy. He wants us to love one another. He wants to experience the best things in life that he's created for us. Then, of course, around the 60s, you had what was called the sexual revolution. Kind of idea that we're not going to really trust this plan of God anymore, that God knows what he's doing, that he cares about us, that he wants what's best. But no, we're going to make up our own rules about this. We're going to do what we feel is going to make us as happy as we want to be. And so they came up with this idea that to do this, that we can use science and technology to kind of reshape human sexuality and to make these things called contraceptives, to make birth control. And if this were the case, people felt they could do what they would want, and that way, if a man wanted to go out and have as much fun as he wanted, he could do that and not have to worry about himself suffering consequences of pregnancy. But they felt that birth control would level the playing field, that the woman could go out and she could do whatever she felt like, and she would no longer have to worry about the consequences of pregnancy. So people were told. But of course there was one little secret that was not told, and that's namely that birth control has a failure rate. There's no such thing as birth control that is foolproof. And so they felt they needed some kind of a backup. What happens when birth control fails? Well, the idea was that what we're going to do is we're going to rename this baby a fetus. We're going to say that it's not human, and that will enable us to destroy it. And that somehow, magically, we're going to make this woman unpregnant. And we're going to deny that there was a life that was ever there. And so here came the new salvation. Here came the sexual revolution. Now that we made up our own rules, now that we can do what we want, now that we can avoid all of our consequences, now we can live with this and we can be as happy as we want to be. Well, it's been a good 50 years since then, hasn't it? And now we're kind of looking at some of the consequences of this new way of life that we're supposed to make everything better for everybody and for men and women and for their relationships. And so what kinds of things do we find? We find, for example, that people are not happy. We find that We find, for example, that STDs are running like an epidemic, hurting most of all our young people. We find, we're beginning to find, as Tony described for you, the consequences of abortion. That it's not a simple choice that makes a woman unpregnant so that she can get on with her life, but it leaves scars, deep scars. And I myself am part of a ministry that ministers to women who've had abortions and are suffering. And I never cease to be saddened and shocked at how deep those scars really go. So many people in the who call themselves pro-choice will say that post-abortion syndrome is something that's non-existent. They'll say that it's something that pro-lifers made up to make women feel guilty. I can tell you that the guilt that I have seen, or the burdens that I've seen of women who've had abortions, this is not manufactured guilt. This is a kind of a grief that touches her at her very deepest level as a woman and as a mother. I've sat next to women who've sobbed sobs that I such as I've never heard, repeating over and over again, "I just want my baby, I just want my baby." But you know, with all of these things that have happened, the physical consequences, the emotional consequences, the spread of STDs, the broken relationships, the broken hearts, the depression, what people call the emotional STDs, you would think that people might take a second look and say, was this sexual revolution such a good idea? But they don't. That's somehow they feel that and I guess this is the point that I want to make, that for the people who have committed themselves to the sexual revolution, all the pain done to women, all the broken hearts, all the STDs, all of these, to them is the acceptable collateral damage of the sexual revolution. In other words, this new ethic of sex, if this is so important that humans live the way they want to live and be able to depart from God's law, this is so important to them that they're willing to really pay this price. If all this pain is going to result, well, that's acceptable collateral damage. That's the way it's got to be. And so it is with something that, like what's going on across the street with Dr. Renalique. You would think, as Tony said, that there'd be people right out here with us from Planned Parenthood, equally angry, equally scandalized that this kind of thing has been going on. But one of these, dare I say, little secrets of the pro-choice movement or the pro-abortion industry is that that this is part of the collateral damage of the sexual revolution, and if this goes on, it's part of the price that they're willing to pay. In other words, they would rather have doctors like Dr. Renalique working here doing abortions than for abortions not to happen at all. And you might say even with so many of these abortion clinics that's something that they're willing to tolerate. Sometimes even the pro-choice people themselves, they say, where are the conscientious physicians with high ethical and medical standards who will come to work in our abortion clinics? What they don't understand is that physicians with high ethical and professional standards don't want to work in abortion clinics. That they want to use their skills in other ways to help women. So again, I thank every single one of you for coming out here to witness to respect for human life. And I certainly hope and pray that in all different ways that we promote the pro-life ethic, that we promote the ethic of true love and chastity among our communities and among our young people, so that people will really find the happiness that God always meant them to find, and so that all of this the horrible pain that's inflicted upon people and upon women will end. Thank you so much.